Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, here is a guess. If you read headlines about news about New Haven, the guest you have on today is almost always behind the headlines. He's not necessarily doing the controversial part or making noise, but he's actually doing the work. City engineer Giovanni Zinn has been the city's engineer since 2014, worked for city government 2005. He's a long-termer. And he's in charge of making sure that the stuff we decide to do in New Haven and to fix in New Haven and to make better in New Haven happens on the ground. He's in today in his familiar style at WNHA. He's been here often over the years to tell us an update on infrastructure in New Haven in 2026. Welcome, Giovanni. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Paul. Thank you so much for the kind words. It's been fun being on the radio over the years. Really always enjoyed it.
I don't know why the ton of, because we started the station 2015 and it got hot and heavy in the 2016 primaries. I remember when you came in and you used to do a show, you changed the whole way I thought about what was possible and not possible in presidential primaries. Because I don't know why that one sticks in my mind. You were with somebody else who's of your same age and realized that what kind of things are possible can happen. You were right. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. Let's talk about what's possible in me doing a city and thinking about a city. Let's dive right into it, but we're also going to talk, as I mentioned, I want to ask you what's going on the ground with all the stuff doing with traffic and rebuilding parts of town and different kinds of energy we're doing and bridges and parks, but also in climate resistance, what you've learned now that you've been here a while, working on these projects, getting yelled at, trying to figure out solutions and stuff, and what that taught you about how you build and rebuild the city in the 21st century. So getting right into traffic calming, that's the thing that probably, is it fair to say you get yelled at more about that than anything else in the city?
I mean, yeah, it's our most common request. People feel passionately about it on all different sides. We get more requests for speed humps, for example, than anything else. And there's a lot of thoughts about it, and I think we're having a really good conversation as a city about traffic calming.
And we're trying so many things. My favorite thing is always going to be the peanut, only because it's so
yes.
weird. But also, is it also true that whatever you do with traffic calming, someone's going to be really upset with whatever you decide because people disagree? Slowing down cars, make cars go as fast as possible is easy, make it better for pedestrians, what's going to work better. Isn't that true?
Yeah, if you open a design manual, right, you see these beautiful roads that are laid out. They look beautiful. There's space for everybody. You look at the size of the right-of-way they have, and it's tens of feet more than we have here.
Is that about being an older city?
It is, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and even the people were smaller, right? Do I have this wrong? That when they built the New Haven Green, they built it for specifications in the Book of Revelations about when the end of the world was going to come, and they wanted 144,000 people to be able to fit on the green. But people used to be a lot smaller. So now, if this does happen a day, we're kind of screwed because we can't fit 144,000 people.
Well, we're about to get back to 144,000 people in population, so maybe we can try it out, right?
That'd be fun if everyone show up one day for a Revelation Day. We actually, Alan Appel, the independent Wax, we went on the day it was supposed to happen. It was 3 years ago that it was always predicted.
Oh, there you go. I missed that.
There were only about 10 people there, and there were one or two who had heard about that was supposed to be there because you're supposed to be lifted up and saved.
Yes. All right. Well, there you go.
But that's not what you're dealing with, the city engineer. You're dealing with State Street from Bradley to MLK. That's been one of my most interesting projects you've working on, Giovanni, which is that you took that strip of State Street, which is the main way people kind of enter and get around the city. And from Bradley to MLK Boulevard by the Route 34, you totally changed how we rebuilt it and your predecessors built it in the 70s and 80s. We made it wider so that cars can go fast in and out of New Haven, and we tore down a lot of old businesses and made to widen that road for suburban drivers getting in and out of New Haven, the thought being that's going to help us have more commerce. We built Channel 8's like suburban style one-story building there so people can get in and out of the big parking lot. And now you guys decided that the city works better if it's easier for people to walk and bike around. If you could build up that lake and you're reclaiming it and you got all these projects to build new housing there. Right. How's that going and how do you feel about that reassessment?
Well, it's really interesting because it really points to things being cyclical, going back to the way State Street was, right?
Which, of course, will never be exactly because the world's different. We don't shop for the same things we did. Like I used to go to a produce store.
Well, at least in the dimension sense, right? Yeah. In the size of the street. And really shout out to Economic Development and City Plan who did the 2016 study that started all of this, and that looked at how do we create more housing, something that we see so much pressure for in the city is how do we create housing and do it in ways that don't displace anybody. So displacing parking lots in the street is better than displacing people.
This is we built so many parking lots, and could that be the best example of like block after block of surface parking lot that got built where there used to be people's homes and businesses?
Yeah, I think that's a very good example. How's it going? I mean, we were seeing it, right? We're in construction. It's at its most constrained that it will ever be. We're looking to get done later this year, completed and repaved, and it'll look really nice, and it'll be all done.
So physical new street will be done by the end of 2026.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, when do we start building around it? Have we already started doing the building, like of the buildings that are going to go up?
So I'm a little less plugged into that, but I think that's also possibly later this year. I know they're actively working. The city announced, the developers, Gilbane and another company, and they're working on all of their plans and everything. You figure out the utilities, et cetera. All the hard work that goes after you announce a project.
So what's involved in the part that you're talking about that gets done by 2026? One lane of traffic in each direction.
Correct. Yeah, the reconfiguration of the roadway, all the new signals, new signal timings, better pedestrian crossings, the construction of the Farmington Canal line that will go through, on the east side of that, connecting also the canal line to
What
Union
does that mean?
Station.
That means that it's going to be continuation of the Farmington Canal Trail is going to be part of that.
Right. So the Farmington Canal was initially thought to go on street on Olive Street, if you'll remember, in Phase 4.
And that's really narrow.
Right. It's very narrow. It's sharrows. It's not really dedicated infrastructure. So this is a way to take
sharrows.
Yeah.
Those were baby steps back in those days. We just did like a little
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is an opportunity to create the same sort of 12 foot mixed use path, grade separated from traffic.
And we're seeing so many more of those around the city. I believe even right there when you go on Water Street, and obviously on
correct. Yeah. So we finished that up last year, and that connects basically what Farmington Canal Phase 4 did up to State Street.
So by the end of 26, we're going to have two. But we kind of have those lanes now, right? Except sometimes you're building on them like on a nice square.
So right now we did a traffic shift a few months ago overnight. It was a big thing,
meaning starting tomorrow, you're going to have to go on one lane or the other.
Correct. So we closed down the east side of State Street, which was State Street North. And now both directions are on what was State Street South. And it's a little constrained because we do need space to still construct. And so there'll be more parking lanes and things like that open up.
Parking lanes. You can be able to park on State Street?
There will be parking in various spots on both sides, actually.
Is that all that's different for drivers? So people panic so people who are near absolutists like me, who are always for the pedestrian cycling thing.
Yeah.
There are other people who feel like, a lot of people drive, including a lot of people who can't afford public or can't rely on public transit. And they are worried about those big tie-ups. And I do try to avoid now State Street if it's rush hour.
Yeah.
But has it been, my sense from working here and looking is, in fact, it hasn't been this nightmare people thought it was going to be. That people find other places, other blocks to drive down.
Well, I think one of the compounding things as well is that, there's the affordable housing or the mixed housing complex at 300 State that's under construction that takes out part of State Street South.
Which is the reason that block is closed to traffic? Is it that or what you're doing on State Street?
Well, it's that, right? Because that closed.
They need
took one of the lanes,
so you don't get hit by stuff falling.
So that's why we have the detour that goes up Union Street up to Chapel Street for northbound traffic on State Street, and that obviously adds another layer of complexity, and that's where we see more of the traffic challenges now.
And then also, if you're going on Elm Street towards State Street at rush hour, things get backed up, right?
Well, they can. I mean, I think they have always. It's a fairly short window, and I think that'll improve as all the signal timings change with our new signalization, and it's a more adaptive street.
And am I right that people find other routes, like when 34 when they got rid of that mini highway? People the first few days, wasn't there this massive traffic, and then people found other ways to get around.
Right. I mean, change is challenging, right? We see that in whatever we do, and not just in traffic. But yes, I think overall it's gotten back. I mean, certainly right after a big snowstorm, there's a bit of adjustment and things like that. But I think overall we're going to see the traffic be able, the street open up and the traffic continue to improve.
We're talking about street redesign and all infrastructure things in New Haven with Giovanni Zinn, the city engineer, who kind of quarterbacks it. Humps versus bumps. I still don't know the difference between a speed hump
and a
bump.
It's pretty simple. Speed bump is what you find in a parking lot, 7-8 miles an hour. They're really abrupt. Speed humps are a lot longer. They're 12 feet long. They don't feel that, but they're 12 feet long.
Horizontally.
Horizontally, as you're driving over them.
As you're driving over.
Yeah.
So you drive over for 12 feet?
12 feet, yeah.
So on Yale Avenue, those are bumps.
Yale Avenue, we have some bumps, and we also have a couple of raised tables.
Oh, so a hump is a raised table.
A hump is, so you sort of have speed bump being the smallest thing that's like in a parking lot.
And then if you go
then there's
fast,
a hump.
you're going to go to Mars.
Yeah, a hump is the one that's about 12 feet long. That's what you see everywhere.
And
a table goes up, then it sort of has a flat section and goes down. There's often a crosswalk all over the top of it.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
Those are tables.
So that's a table by Edgewood School.
Correct, yes.
So I'm trying to picture a hump. That's 12.
Well, there's probably about 300 of them in New Haven.
300 humps. Okay, tell me a couple. Just give me one.
Further up, Yale Avenue. Where else? Shelton Avenue. There's a series of speed humps on Shelton Avenue. Basically in the side streets.
And what if we decided over the years what works best or where? Why do we have different ones in different places?
So it really depends. Usually you'll see tables more in higher traffic locations. So Fox and Boulevard has.
Is that because traffic can go flow more?
Yeah, and it's a little better with larger vehicles. So it's a little less sudden because the up and down is separated a little bit more.
So what does it succeed in doing if it's not as sudden? Does it still slow down?
Well, it still slows traffic down, yes.
But the bump will be a more sudden thing, so you don't want to have a whole lot of traffic. So
and it's also lower speed, yeah. So exactly.
So is the bump more where people are just going too fast where there aren't that many cars?
The hump is, yes. We don't install bumps.
Oh, you don't?
No.
So there are no bumps on Yale Avenue?
No, those are humps.
Those are 12 feet?
Those are 12 feet long, yeah. You got to stop, park, pull off to the side, park next to one, and pace it out. You'll see it's about 12 feet.
Wow, I do walk there all the time, but I know that your car, you still have to go down to like 7 miles an hour, or you're going to get like a shock to your car.
It depends. I mean, they're all handmade, so the profile of them varies from hump to hump. We've
Humps
worked a lot.
Handmade?
Yeah.
Like who and where?
Well, so what happens is you use a what's called a miller, and you mill out an outline of it. Basically, drop the edge down an inch or two, and that allows sort of something to tie into. It's a key cut right around it, and then you dump out of a dump truck asphalt.
I've watched that,
and then the crew sort of hand tamps and shapes it with shovels and stuff. Yeah. And so anything that isn't done in a very reproducible manner has some natural variability to it.
I actually watched that one day with my grandkid outside our house at a house in Northampton, Mass. And I watched how quickly the crew had to follow up. They really have a short window to then sculpt it the right way before it hardens.
Yeah. So that's something we've been working as well. We've gone back and measured humps with surveying equipment, trying to understand. Also, the way they feel is more. There's more to it than just the height. They're about 3.5 inches high, and two humps that are the same height can feel very differently based on the shape. So we've worked with our contractors.
What have you learned about the shape? What makes the best shaped
hump? So one of the things is just the angles, kind of having a smoothly decreasing angle on it. On speed tables,
it's a gradual
sort of the severity of the angle between the side, which is more sloped, and the top. How sort of crisp that line is can make a fairly significant difference in how it feels.
And do you try to make it a little more of a gradual incline so it doesn't shock your system?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a mid-range, if you will, where it was sort of the sweet spot, right? And then on one side it's too jarring, and the other side you just drive over it and don't feel it, right? And it just feels like a natural grade change in the road, which doesn't slow anyone down. So it's really kind of dialing that in.
It does seem like they work.
Yes, they slow people down.
What about roundabouts? Now, that's become popular in general.
Yeah.
Roundabouts seem like the kind of thing that don't make intuitive sense, but seem to work in practice.
Yeah.
Because you really have to watch each other and cooperate in a way that you can't just ram into each other. You got to take turns.
I think you've hit the nail on the head as to why roundabouts work. They slow everyone down. They make everyone more visible to everyone else. It's smooth, so you get traffic benefits because traffic is always moving. You may be slowing down, but your queue is always moving, as opposed to a stoplight, a traffic signal where you bring everyone to a halt and then you let everyone else flow by.
And the Peanut's kind of a form of a roundabout, right?
Correct.
Just the street didn't work. Where else are we doing roundabouts, and are we increasing?
So we've got a handful of roundabouts. We've got Ferry and Grand as a traditional roundabout as part of our Grand Avenue project.
When's that going to be?
We're looking to start construction later this year on Grand Avenue. Whether that includes the roundabout or not is TBD. It sort of depends on the construction schedule.
So it'll be late 2026 or early 2026.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
And we have a question to ask about the greenways. We'll definitely get to the greenways. Thank you.
Sounds good. And then BRT is actually proposing a couple of roundabouts as well.
And by BRT, mean Bus Rapid Transit, and we'll get to that, where we're going to have lanes dedicated to just buses that make fewer stops, so you can get quicker home on main thoroughfares like Dixwell and Grand.
And a lot of other things that make buses run better. So,
did I remember correctly that you're thinking of a roundabout at the craziest intersection in the history of New Haven, the Hydra-headed Dixwell, Goff, Elm, Tower, Broadway?
Correct, yeah.
So that is a crazy intersection.
That's as part of Bus Rapid Transit looking to do that and just bring some more flow and clarity through that.
So was that built in the 30s?
I don't know the exact history of that. There was some Yale student
who wrote a paper that I thought was used as the basis for that. I could be wrong.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, I know Broadway was kind of redone in the early 90s, but I don't remember how much traffic reconfiguration was part
So
of
now
it.
What's going to replace it when there's a roundabout there? Like, how's that going to work? What's going to disappear and what's going to appear? Where's this roundabout going to be? Because I can't picture how you could plunk something big and round at that area.
Yeah, I mean, it reconfigures the parking lot a bit there.
So we're going to have to cut into the parking lot?
The current design cuts into the parking lot a bit.
No tears for that.
Takes a little bit of the nose of the other side. The theory about it is that you feed everyone in constantly
that
and move around.
I mean, as you've been there at 4:30 or 5, there is so much traffic going in so many different directions. So when do you think we'll build a roundabout there?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of design still left to go on Bus Rapid Transit. I think they're looking at service in 2030.
Okay, so it'll be a lot of years.
And then we have some, state has some federal funding. There's also state commitments around it. They're also looking to, continue to apply for federal BRT funds.
Because that's still got a while. The Foxon redo, how's that doing? Foxon Boulevard.
I think it's good. We've got through a winter here. We'll be back out here in the spring to do the sidewalk part of it. So the thought there is to calm traffic and improve the pedestrian
walk across it without dying. Yeah.
So right now, prior to the project, it was just this big giant strip of asphalt. We put in medians. We're going to have lighting on the medians, kind of cutting down on some of the excess area there. Also, we have 3 speed tables to cut down on the racing.
When's that coming?
The first speed table's in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got 2 more here starting in the spring. And then also creating a sidewalk on the north side from the Walmart crosswalk up towards where the sidewalk starts near Quinnipiac Avenue.
Because so many people there, even though that was built for the car, there's so many humans there now.
Correct.
And so you have 1 speed table in, 2 to come.
Yep.
Is the speed table where you're going to have the crosswalk so that it's safer to cross?
No, so it's actually a little further down, and the thought is to slow people down before they get to the intersection. And so there are various ways you can sort of implement speed tables. I think in the case of the geometry there, it made sense to put them a little further down. Also, we went on YouTube and watched where some of the racing and stuff was going on, and sort of saw that stretch from Walmart up to Middletown Avenue was the more popular spot. So we put that right in the middle, and
that's where you start with the speed table based on where they're racing.
Well,
will they just race somewhere else when you put the speed table there?
I mean, I suppose they'll find somewhere else to go race, whether it's in New Haven or not. I don't know.
That's right. Let's somewhere else. I think other cities could use a little racing. It's kind of boring in the suburbs.
I'm not going to pick fights with my colleagues in other towns.
and the last thing on traffic calm is delineators. So one of the big fights is always the rubber duckies, which aren't rubber anymore. Those little posts that we all thought the perfect way to separate bike lanes, I could be wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, is that we always thought ideally when you have a bike lane, pedestrian lane in traffic, it's good to have a concrete or other hard form of barrier.
Yeah.
But that costs a lot of money. So in a lot of places, like famously on Edgewood Avenue, as it goes to Edgewood Park, we put these poles, they're delineators, and they're always knocked down every year. So then we have to put them back. Is that okay? I've heard people say to me, I always thought, well, that means they failed. And people get upset because you keep knocking them down, you don't have to protect it away. I had someone who rides their bike a lot tell me, I feel very safe there. And so some get knocked down, but people don't drive in there. And it's okay if you replace them. What's your thinking now on delineators?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're one of the tools in the toolbox, right? They're an opportunity to do stuff. They're lower cost. They also save other problems. Like we ended up using them on Water Street over the bridge, because if we put anything bigger or heavier, we would have had to basically reevaluate the entire design of the bridge to make sure that it would carry a load, or we'd have to reinforce the bridge.
And which bridge are we talking about? The first one, the MLK and Union?
Right, this is the truss bridge that goes over the railway.
Does that have a name?
It's got a number. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I've never heard that one called anything. So do you think delineators are a least desirable but most cost-effective way to get it in a bigger scale? Or do you think that delineators are underappreciated and are actually good?
I think it's a mix of both, right? I mean, there's certain spots where they make sense. There are other places where you'll see that we're doing a lot of stuff that's above the curb. We actually got a grant a couple months ago to do concrete barriers on East Street, so we're going to try that out. I think we're learning, right? I mean, one of the key things that you do in engineering is whenever you build a project, you learn from it. It's, if we wait to do Edgewood Avenue the whole way and put in new curb and everything, it would take a lot longer, right? It took long enough, right?
But it's good.
But it's an opportunity. And again, we do see, some feedback. Some people are concerned about delineators. I get that. And it's certainly a thing in the bike community to push for, curb separated or
Well, tell me
otherwise.
about East Street. You mentioned that in passing. So you said East Street you decided was a place not to put delineators. Tell me about that.
Right. So we wanted to try something different, which is looking at these precast concrete barriers. And that was a street that, isn't so residential by and large, has heavier truck traffic, and was a way to look at and justify, going with a concrete barrier.
And is that to separate a bike lane?
Correct. Yeah. To separate.
And which part of East Street? Which end?
All of it.
Because it's crazy.
From Water
by
up,
Ward 1, yeah.
Yeah. So from Water all the way up to State Street.
Okay.
Well, I think when we redid the sidewalk up there at the upper end, we actually made it wider so we can go on that for a little bit. But back where the pizza trucks are, that's kind of where it starts.
And so when are those going in?
Well, we just got the grant. We're working on design. So soon, hopefully.
Like
I mean,
2026 or
possibly in 2026 or 2027.
And we're talking Giovanni Zinn, the city engineer since 2014, working in the department since 2005. What he's learned and where we're going with infrastructure. So since someone asked, let's skip our list and go down to the greenways. If I'm not, and please correct me when I act like I know this stuff and I'm just trying to remember. Olmsted, who did design Central Park, he once designed for New Haven 100 years ago, right? Or more.
Yep.
A whole network of parks that were connected by greenways. We built some of that, but not other parts of that.
Right.
And now we're kind of talking about doing it, right?
Yeah.
Connecting all in New Haven with greenways so that you go on a bike on your foot and you actually can walk through parks and go everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we look at our active transportation infrastructure, we really realize...
Was that right about Frederick Olmsted?
I think so, yes. Okay. My history...
Because part of it included like what we were going to originally do with Churchy South and never did.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yep. So, I think, Olmsted was a very smart guy, right? He had a lot of good ideas and built a lot of nice parks. Really what we're looking at is our active transportation
park, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it's a gem.
Yeah. And trying to build our active transportation network and really turn it into a network, right? We're at the point where there's enough, sort of bike lanes and things around that it's really the time to start connecting them. And also, greenways, I think, are special because they're not
what is a greenway?
So the way that we're sort of thinking about them is they are not only an active transportation network piece.
What does that mean? A place where you can bike
Place
or
where you can
walk?
bike or walk, or use a scooter or go in a wheelchair, et cetera, right?
Those are big, yeah.
And it's an opportunity but it's also a destination unto itself, right? So it connects green spaces. It connects, goes more in natural places. Oftentimes, it's significantly separated from the roadway, although some sections are right next to a roadway. And it's sort of our top tier of active transportation networks.
And then even though they're not green technically, they're asphalt. They have a lot of green around them, so there are trees around them. Is that part
That's
of
the aspiration, yeah. And it connects through a lot of green space. Shoreline Greenway, for example, goes through East Shore Park, and
or even
Long
defining
Wharf,
is going around Long Wharf. That's a greenway, even though you mean the water.
Right.
It's a nature.
Yes.
So what is the Crosstown Greenway? What's the network we're envisioning?
So that's so in 2004, the City Plan Department, Karen Gilvarg, if you'll remember her, they published the plan for active. Oh gosh, greenways and cycle tracks or something like that of New Haven. Apologize, I forgot the name. That had 4, right? Had the Farmington Canal Greenway, had the Harborside Trail, which now is the Shoreline Greenway, the Mill River Trail, and the West River Greenway. And so what we realized, a lot of those are really north-south, and trying to create something that goes east-west across the city is kind of the holy grail, and it's also incredibly difficult to do. For whatever reason, New Haven has a much easier time finding space for active transportation stuff north-south than it does east-west. And so this is an opportunity to take, Edgewood Avenue.
Would that be a factor of rivers going north-south? I'm getting way behind my education here. And because transportation was in rivers, then railroads came next, and they tended to follow rivers, so then the highways followed them.
I think you can go back and blame the glaciers, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So what are you thinking of now? How are you going to go east-west?
So I think what we showed, and we've got a lot of feedback in various different ways about it. What we showed was Edgewood Avenue, then up Park Street, down Elm Street to the Green, then through the Green, across Court Street, out to Worcester Square. Then, we still have to talk to the DOT about this. There's a little extra space in the underpass of Exit 2. So trying to sneak under the highway there, which is really sort of one of the challenges.
Hamilton Street.
Right at Hamilton Street, going down Hamilton Street, going through, across the mill.
That's a real connection, because whenever I walk around there, I think about how those were streets that used to be connected.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very confusing. Mill Street, Mill River Street, is very confusing because there's half of it over here and then half of it pops up over here.
And all the streets around Connie School.
Yeah, exactly. Then through Mill River Park and then across, by Martinez.
So where are we realistically, big picture? What's the 10 mile above view of when that crosstown thing will happen?
So, I mean, we set up a goal, and it's really just the goal, and it's kind of, put a pressure on ourselves to try to get this done by the end of 2030, right?
Done mean built, or done
built,
mean when are you going to decide where it's going to go block by block?
So I think we're looking to publish our Greenways 2030 plan later this spring. But then there's
spring.
Okay. And that's sort of the master planning document, if you will.
And to include how you're going to make those east-west connections, like you'll decide about Exit 2. In the meantime, in answer to the question, thank you for listening with the question. What about the 4 greenways? How are we doing with the Shoreline Trail, the Mill River, the West River, and the Farmington Canal? Where are we on each of those parts? You did mention Farmington Canal, that State Street is gonna.
So State Street is really the last piece to have it fully off road and completed. Shout out to the City Plan Department for doing a great job on 4 phases of Farmington Canal, and we now just have a couple little connecting pieces. We got Water Street done.
Now,
State Street will be
how
done.
do we get there from the FBI building? Was always the big problem because we couldn't go under there because they're worried about terrorism, right?
Well, they filled it in too.
So how do we get by the?
So we built on Grove Street.
I just saw that. Right now we lost parking on
Grove Street is done, and then it'll just come down the east side of State Street.
So we're on the last leg of fully off road for the Farmington Canal.
We're pushing hard on. We have. Basically, between the Long Wharf Waterfront project and then we have $9.3 million for Shoreline Greenway. That'll take us from the East Haven town line all the way through the Long Wharf Preserve. So then there's a little bit of piece to do, just City Point.
Now some of that's done, right?
Yes, I mean,
from East Haven to.
Well, no, I mean, like the.
You have the raised part of the sidewalks of Water Street where you
that's kind of the Farmington Canal line coming in and tying in, and then there's sort of just this little connector there sort of between the shoreline.
So when we do the shoreline, when do you see that being done?
So we're going to finish up design a little later this year. We have to be done by September, and we'll slide right into construction. So, probably late this year, early next year, possibly late this year, but most likely
early next year is when you begin construction.
Yeah.
And then what about the Mill River Trail? That's kind of interesting. You hacked away all that.
Yeah, so it's got various pieces constructed on it. I know economic development as part of the whole Mill River MDP is working hard on it. We have the Mill River North section. We'll have a dedicated public meeting on here soon. Got to schedule that. So that'll take us from East Rock Park at Orange Street through to essentially the tie gates behind the ice rink. And includes, cool. We're proposing a culvert that goes under Willow Street, just because it's a very high traffic road and all that. And then there's a little segment,
a culvert where people would be able to go through, just like by Audubon Street, be like that with the tunnel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
that's
Hamden has one near Stop and Shop, for example. There's a number of them.
Oh yeah. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
When are you doing that?
Well, again, we're designing this year, and we'll be in construction over the next couple of years. So
you got a lot of great stuff on your plate.
Yeah, we're trying.
City engineer talking about infrastructure. We're not going to get to all this today, but we'll do the best we can.
Fair enough.
Bridges. What kind of bridges you working on? You just finished putting that bridge on in Edgewood Park.
Correct.
But I noticed there's been no event. Is that because you're still completing like the approaches and things?
Yeah, it's also been the dead of winter, right?
Is it rusted? We keep every time we walk on it, we try to figure.
It's weathered. It's weathered steel, so it has it's a special type of steel. It's like Corten was the trade name, and it creates a patina of rust, and then it stops rusting, and that's one of the.
So the rust stops it from rusting.
Correct.
But it's actual rust.
It is.
That makes
iron oxide. Yes, there's some other chemical stuff in there that I.
So you put rust on top of a bridge to stop it from rusting.
Yes,
that's almost like getting a vaccine. You get a little bit of the.
Well, they're both effective, right?
Right. What other bridges you working on?
So I think that's sort of the biggest bridge that we have over the next few years. I mean, I got to give a lot of credit, as I have previously, to Richard Miller, the previous city engineer. He did a lot of bridges, and we did a bunch of bridges, and we're getting to a point where
the big one was the grand one.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of bridges that are rating in a category that gets us funding. Right? They're in too good of a shape. If that's a very weird concept.
Yeah, so you let it get dangerous, and then you fix it.
Right. Well, poor, which is not quite dangerous
but
yet.
That's good. So how many bridges are poor?
I think we've got the big one coming up is the Ferry Street Bridge, which you will of course recall was closed for a number of years in the aughts. Essentially, we have to do all the stuff that was not done in that project. So we sort of keep putting in grant applications for it. The Trump administration has not been.
Is it in poor condition?
It has. It has certain elements that are starting to get to rated poor. I don't think overall it's quite poor yet. It might be
any
5.
lessons when you look back. You mentioned stuff that didn't get done. That's get done now.
Yeah.
I know you're always working with limitations of money. What lessons have you drawn in your years here, 20 years in the city, about how you do a bridge?
Well, I think you got to stay on top of your inspections, right? So all of our bridges over 20 feet get inspected twice every 2 years by the state of Connecticut, and we read those inspection reports like gospel, right? And we've also instituted Zach Shapiro, native of New Haven, our chief structural engineer, also took learned bridge inspections. So now we inspect our under 20 bridges as well, or smaller bridges.
And does under 20 mean?
Under 20 feet long. So we don't have very many of those. We have 10, 15, something like that. Hamden has, like almost 60 or something like that. This is crazy. Yeah. It's close. You get closer to the water, your water courses tend to grow in size. And so a lot of our bridges, the vast majority of them are over 20 feet. And
that's so interesting. I learn so much every time I talk to you, Giovanni. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to move a little faster here just to get more of this in. The green redo, you had a lot of public meetings about here redoing the green. I still don't understand a one-earth. So Temple Street is going to be a WOONERF, which is a Dutch concept. Does that mean cars can still drive on it or not?
Correct. Yeah. So we've heard a lot of feedback from many stakeholders. The churches being one of them. They felt it was very important to continue to have through traffic on Temple
people
Street.
can park when they go to church,
and that as well. But they want to have through traffic. I think they felt it was very important to discovery of the churches for them. And so we have one lane of through traffic going through, but also using materials and things like that to make it clear that you're in a different space. You're in the middle of the green. This is a space that has a lot of pedestrians.
So right now it's 2 lanes?
It's 3, technically.
So it's going to go down to 1.
Correct.
And the way the lane is designed is going to be different. That lets you know.
Yeah. So we're looking at different materials. It's not asphalt. Probably it'll be brick.
That's nice.
Really kind of creating a visual cue while maintaining sort of the visual distinction of the road from the parallel pedestrian paths and things like that. So there are a lot of design pressures on the green.
What are the kind of? Is this some stuff you decided not to do? Right? Are you still going to do a raised intersection? Is that?
Yes, we're doing raised intersections all the way around. We pulled back a lot based on the feedback from the preservation community.
Like, what did you decide
churches.
not to do?
The playscape, right, or children's play garden. We're going to put in a concrete pad to make putting the stage up easier. That's something that we took out. Some of the
Why
trees.
are people against kids playing and having the stage go up easier?
I think in general, just trying to keep the stage part was just the impervious area. Just trying to keep down the impervious area that we had as much as possible.
Meaning stuff that doesn't take rain in?
Correct. Yeah, and that's very important from a historic perspective. Kind of keeping the green as it were. I think also just they don't want to set the precedent of paving a lot of historic greens as much. And
why were they against kids?
Well, I think the upper green, we got a lot of feedback to keep the upper green as it is, and really kind of a quiet contemplative space.
Cool.
So on the other hand, we keep getting feedback from people who want to see the playscape or
I
the
would
children's
guess
garden.
that people are at the playscape, but I could be wrong. I know you have to listen to people show up in the meetings. But what about what you are doing? So you're doing the WNERF, which is always be fun to say.
Yeah, we're redoing the paths on the lower green. We're putting in entry plazas at the corners. We're doing the raised intersections. Trying to right now as you cross the stone dust path, it gets really soupy in the winter. So putting in hardscapes so you can get from the roads to the paths in the green without having to go through the mess there and make it easier to maintain.
Cafe and public bathrooms?
Yeah, so cafe and public bathrooms. The building's right tucked up, sort of where Court Street comes into Church Street, right up against Church Street there. So kind of tucked into the side.
What kind of buildings are going to be? That's going to be interesting.
We're actually working with the proprietors, looking for architects right now. Who's
going to run the cafe?
Well, it would be a vendor that would come in
like
to
a
do that.
cafe type thing.
Sure.
But bathrooms, people are going to go to bathrooms.
Yes, public bathrooms. We heard a lot of feedback about it, making sure we're public.
I remember
bathrooms.
Andrew Wolf even talking about that years ago as a
cafe. Well, I think you go back,
and how do you do
100 years.
And people are worried there's going to be a lot of drug use there. They're not going to be safe, right?
Well, I think there's always challenges in any urban space. Making sure that the bathrooms are maintained, they're cleaned. They're a high use facility. So just making sure we have the operating protocols around that.
City engineer Giovanni Zinn, Barbell Club. That's the old youth rec place in Trowbridge Square. We fixed up that park.
Yep.
We're rebuilding the what is it, like community center there, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it'll be an opportunity. It's a really cool space. It was built back in the 1920s. It was really lauded as an accessible space. It's one floor. Of course, it doesn't meet any ADA codes now, so we have to do that. But we're getting to the home stretch here, and a little later this year, we'll be able to open up and start having programming, much like our other community hubs.
So later, 2026.
Correct.
Do you remember Bummy Moore? Whenever you hear the Barbell Clubs, this guy named Bummy Moore who ran that club.
It's a little before my time.
Property service for like decades, and the kids used to just go around him to just touch him. They wanted to touch his arm.
Oh, interesting.
He was so magnetic. It was just a safe place the kids had.
Well, I mean, it's a very cool space with a lot of history. I think, we've certainly seen when the door's been open, we've had people from the neighborhood poke their head and say, "Hey, what's going on? You guys are fixing it up?" Yes. And then they tell us stories, about the Barbell Club. Gwen, has stories about it. And it's really a cool space and a place that, we're really excited to reopen.
Where you can see that the engineering work you do, the nuts and bolts actually turn into a place where people are doing stuff.
And that's the point, right? Yeah. Infrastructure doesn't really mean anything by itself. It's about what it affords people.
And what it means, like being able to travel places, get to work,
Right.
be with each other in public. And so English Station, you're kind of a point person. That's a very controversial project.
Sure.
About whether we're going to spend $25 million or more to clean up the toxicity so it can be an outdoor pool. How's that coming? How's that looking?
Well, I think you've obviously seen a lot of it in the news. It's very closely watched. It's interesting because I was an intern in 2005 in the summer, and I think that was one of the things I worked on then.
What did you work on?
English Station.
But I mean, was that
just
during the 6 days?
Yeah. It was after the City 6 days. So 2001 was the original. They tried to reopen it, and Art Rock, handed down the decision. Really a seminal moment in New Haven's environmental justice movement. By that time, 2005, 2006, you had changed owners and stuff, and I think there was a proposal to try to put in a bunch of gas turbine generation, and so we kind of fought against that. And it's been in various permutations. Part of the last 20 years for me. So it's really an opportunity to take control of our destiny, I think.
And the question is whether we can meet hurdles to clean up the standards so it's not to an industrial level, which would limit people to 6 hours, 8 hours a week to be able to physically be there, to a residential level.
Yeah.
So there are questions whether we'll get the money to do it and whether who's going to be liable if they're environmental concerns.
Certainly, UI is responsible to clean it to the commercial industrial level, and a lot of the contamination just has to come out, right? Even to meet that, and so to get that to a standard where you can build a park, using the engineered controls and other standards of the industry, a lot of that is probably just adding more fill and more caps and things like that. So it's not it's however many million to get the commercial industrial and then the same amount again to get to a park. There's a small delta, and I think one of the other good things about having an endpoint, you're clearly moving towards an endpoint, is that then your entire remediation scheme that UI has to do can be designed towards that endpoint.
So even if they're not going to be responsible for the second step, they can take steps to make
correct. And
what about renewable energy? What if we did some kind of solar or other kind of hydrogen, whatever kind of plant there?
Well, I think, all those things are interesting, right? Because
they did have a history of providing energy. Why wouldn't we want to have some kind of municipal owned power fair haven with clean energy and not have to clean it up to the same extent?
Well, the first part of that is very complicated. How do you make this power and not just sell it to the grid, but try to benefit the people around it directly? Then we have to turn into Wallingford and all of that, and that's a very complicated. I would love to turn
Wallingford in only that way. In another way, it would be like Wallingford, but municipal owned energy.
For sure, yeah. And I think every few years that comes up, and I've made treks up to Wallingford.
What have you learned there? Why does this right wing government have the most naderite publicly owned power that's cheaper and more reliable?
Well, it was really an opportunity when the new technology came in, right? That they built their own power and they kept it. Now,
what kind of power was it?
Well, I'm sure it was coal or whatever at the time, right? Really, it's the ownership of all the distribution network, right? Now, to set up something like Wallingford's Electric, you'd have to buy the entire distribution network in New Haven from UI,
who has now been so much in default for tens of millions of dollars worth of remediation.
Well, and it's just an incredibly expensive asset, right? And so
let's
I think
talk about geothermal. You've been working on a very exciting project. There's a great long piece about it in the Connecticut Mirror the other day about how it's physically being done. That by the train station, we want to create geothermal energy that would support both the train station and developments we're building there with new housing, as well as new housing across the street in what used to be Church Street South. How's that going, and when that's going to be done?
It's going well. Big shout out to Steve Winter for piloting that and really driving that. And when people said he couldn't do it, he's doing it. I think, we're finishing up design. We did some test wells. Later this year into next year is when we're going to start really ramping up the construction on it. And that's probably 18, 20 months, something like that. So it takes a little while.
So you think 2027?
2027 we'll see construction. Yeah.
And you think finish in
2028? Probably 2028, yeah.
And then I'm trying to get through as much as we can, although we don't have to be completist. But bus rapid transit's a big thing.
Big deal.
Now, so that's where you have 4 of our main routes through major streets. We're going to have dedicated lanes for buses.
Yeah.
That'll go faster because they'll make fewer stops and they'll be separated from the rest of the road. Is
And also transit signal prioritization, where if a bus starts lagging, then they're able to catch up by getting green. So that's a big thing as well.
So at first in Oakland, when they did that, people were confused, and there were actually accidents. People were driving into that lane because it was so narrow, they didn't know what was what. Is that just an issue of time? Like when we talk about streets, people just have to get used to something new? Or do you think it's possible these streets are too narrow to make something like that work?
Well, I think if you look at it, this isn't like wholesale lanes in huge sections. So like Dixwell Avenue, is too narrow in many spots to do that. We looked at that, and that we're not proposing lanes there.
I see. So it's not going to be an uninterrupted.
Correct. Yeah. So downtown, because of the way downtown is, we felt it was very important to have that dedicated bus infrastructure. Whaley Avenue has a little more space. That has an opportunity there. Grand Avenue can't fit it. So we're not going out to West Haven. That doesn't have dedicated lanes.
So we're not going to have BRT on Grand.
Oh, you do. So BRT doesn't need dedicated lanes necessarily, right? If you look at some of the data that CT Transit has, they basically can give you very, very granular data on the speed of their buses. It's really the signals that are slowing their buses down once you get out of downtown.
So is BRT more about signals?
It's a mix, right? It's both, right? It's about the service.
So what's bit different on Grand is going to be if the bus is running behind, the light's going to be different.
Yeah, and there was a little pilot that we did a few months ago with CT Transit on it, and we improved 15% improvement in on-time performance, right? Which is nothing to sneeze at in the transit world.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of things, and it's also the service itself. Having another bus, it's an overlay that goes every 10 minutes, and it's quick. It has fewer stops. It cuts down your transit time by as much as 40%.
And that's 2030 we're talking there. Correct. Too, right? So finally, Giovanni, we always run out of time. You and Mike Piscatelli are the two department heads who were department heads before the Ellick administration took over. You've kind of been through two administrations. What have you learned in these years about how you make a difference, both as an engineer and as a department head in government, to deliver? What have you learned that you didn't know before about how you make an impact on people's lives?
Well, it's interesting, and of course, I'm incredibly grateful to Mayor Harp for having appointed me, and to Mayor Ellicker for having reappointed me a couple times now. And it's I think on the one hand, we often pay attention to a lot of the flashy projects, the English stations, the greens, all that kind of stuff. But also there's just a lot of hard work in the background. How do we replace the sidewalks? How do we pave the streets, clear the snow, all that kind of stuff. And balancing all of that, I think it's really interesting, and having to do that and think about that as a department head, sort of the big vision stuff. What's going to happen in 5-10 years? How do we deal with climate change? And also, how do we fix the sidewalk that's broken in front of Mrs. Smith's house, right?
You're a spiritual person. You're religious.
I am.
What's spiritual about being an engineer? What's the spirit of that?
Well, I think it's about helping,
purpose
right?
Of your life?
I mean, I think what drew me to engineering is that it's very practical. I like doing stuff with my hands and getting into the nuts and bolts. But I think the temptation is that engineering is just about the infrastructure itself. But no, it's about what it enables people to do. How does it connect people to each other? How does it connect people to opportunity to better their lives? And that's what I find most thrilling about my job, is being able to do that. The pandemic taught us the importance of sidewalks, reminded us of the importance of sidewalks, the most humble piece of infrastructure we have. That just connected people to neighbors. I mean, I remember being out on my sidewalk and meeting my neighborhood.
Does that go back to your point about the big flashy projects matter, but am I putting words in your mouth to say that you've had a greater appreciation over the years for the nuts and bolts, not flashy projects?
You gotta have both. You gotta have both. You gotta have a vision, right? Very important to have that vision of where New Haven can be.
Like the Greenway.
Right. And these big things, and, looking back at what New Haven was, I remember being a, young guy sitting in the department, in the meetings in the planning department when I was there, talking about 360 State, and, some people thought it would be great. Some other people said they'll never rent it out. And, 360 State was the start of a giant, flood of these developments on parking lots. And, they're all filling up, and seeing the city evolve over time. And it takes both some of the visionary projects, but really also paying attention to the nuts and bolts.
Well, thank you for paying attention to the nuts and bolts.
Thanks.
Thank you for being so unflappable when people get upset about what happens in our city and how we try to build it and getting us to the next place.
Hey, people love New Haven, and I love New Haven. It's a great place.
Too. I do love New Haven. I love chatting with you, Giovanni Zinn, the city engineer. Thanks for coming on Dateline.
Thank you.
Thanks to Harry Dross behind the controls. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free from the group CD A Plea for Peace, their version of Nina Simone. This is Paul Best inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.